viewers, welcome to Go Vegan. We are celebrating veganism through 16th Sattvic Vegan Festival at Sthita Pragna, Bangalore, Udupi district. We have a lot of vegans here who have gathered to celebrate veganism and spread the message of veganism. And today we have Richa with us. Let us see how was her journey of veganism and what are her thoughts of vegan. Richa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So first of all, Richa, tell me something about yourself. When did you, change over to veganism, and what inspired you to shift from being a non-vegan or a vegetarian into a vegan?
Okay. So I'm Richa Thomas, and I'm a 21-year-old working professional. I just recently graduated.
Okay.
I turned vegan in January 2016.
Okay, that is 2 years almost.
Yes, almost 2 years. A little over 2.5 actually. Yeah. So the reason why I went vegan was we adopted a little kitten home. And long story short, we fell in love with her, and we realized that, other animals who were being used were not very different from my kitten. These included animals who were used for food, for entertainment, for clothing, for experimentation and so on. And when I made that connection and I realized that they weren't different from her, I realized that they deserve respect just as she did, because she is a sentient being too. And therefore they need their rights too, just like she did. And she's the one who made me change. Yeah.
Okay. So once you got to know that animals are going through this abuse and exploitation, do you really felt that veganism is the only way to solve this, or to contribute at least a little bit towards animal exploitation, or do you really feel there could be any other way of even stopping animal exploitation for that matter?
Yeah. So what I'd have to say is, I believe that veganism is a coherent approach to try and stop animal exploitation. The reason being that, as I mentioned earlier, animals are sentient beings, right? And this basically means that they can feel pleasure and pain.
Right.
So if we are to actually think of a way of completely stopping animal exploitation, then I believe that the only logical way to do so is to completely stop using them. And not just use them, in humane ways, like, humane killing or humane milking or, humane experimentation. So I believe that a coherent approach to try and stop exploitation is to view them as sentient beings and to therefore not use them for anything, whether that be for food or for, experimentation, leather, and so on, as mentioned earlier. I do believe that a lot of people get intimidated by the fact that, they have to stop living a certain way that they used to live for so long. I do believe that they get intimidated by that. But even if a person is not making the change overnight, I think that it's possible to definitely make the change nonetheless.
Right.
So, okay, say for example, you hear about veganism and it really intimidates you. Maybe your friend or your family member has told you about it, and it really intimidates you, and you don't want to make the change because you feel like there's no going back. What I would suggest is take steps, and the ultimate goal of those steps would be to, completely stop using animals. So you can start by, cutting down your consumption. If what I would suggest is, it's possible to go vegan overnight, because that's what happened to me actually. When I found out that, animals are being used, I didn't see a need to use them any further at all. So I went vegan immediately. However, for certain people who find it too intimidating and are not willing to do it immediately, I think even if you do it step by step doesn't mean, several years, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Even if you do it step by step, push yourself, and with the ultimate goal of not using animals at all, in any form, whether for food or in any other way. Yeah.
Right. Okay, and also if you have to ask anybody to go vegan, it is not only about you being compassionate about animals, but also being considerate about the environment. So how good is it for the environment if you start following vegans?
Okay. So I'd actually like to make a slight correction in that. The way I look at it, veganism is a social justice movement for animals. It recognizes that animals are sentient beings and should therefore not be used as commodities, right? And again, I'd like to reiterate the fact that because usually when people hear of veganism, they think it's just about food.
Right,
You know, they
right.
think it's about a diet change. But veganism is simply a social justice movement, and it recognizes that animals should not be used as commodities because they are sentient beings. And you know, so it's not just about food, it's about the way we see them, it's about us changing the way we see them entirely.
Correct, yes.
So I believe that going vegan could have several benefits to the environment, but I wouldn't say that the environmental benefits are a part of veganism. It's just that they're a bonus of going vegan, but the main thing is stopping to exploit animals. Yeah, but definitely going vegan will help improve the environment, but as I mentioned again, the main goal is to help change the way people see animals. Yeah.
Correct. But as you rightly mentioned, it's changing people's perception, changing people's opinion about consumption of any food for that matter. It's a difficult task. You know, people still claim that, what's in my platter is my choice. May it be animal or may it be plant food. So convincing them is a kind of a task for each and every vegan. Yeah. So in that way, do you really feel that vegan activism plays a very important role, and every other vegan should always go and keep on actively promote veganism?
Yeah, I'll take two parts into consideration. The first, where you mentioned about people thinking that it's a personal choice,
Yes.
and the second, where you asked whether vegan activism is important in
Yes.
order to change the plight of animals. So talking about the first point, I would like to say that what we wear is a personal choice. How we choose to comb our hair is a personal choice, right? But I think it's very logical to take into consideration the fact that whenever a third party is affected by our actions and choices, then they cease to be personal choices. For example, if I were to do anything that, say for example, if I were to bully a human being, right? A third party is involved. That is, that human being is involved, right? So then it ceases to be personal because someone else is being affected by our choice. That's why it wouldn't be considered personal. And as rightly mentioned before, wear your hair however you want, that's a personal choice. But when third parties are involved, and it's literally a matter of life and death for them, a matter
If you
of...
say wearing is our personal choice, leather also comes into picture.
Yes, but agreed. Again, if you take into consideration leather, as I mentioned earlier, when third parties are involved, the choices cease to be personal, right? So even in the use of leather, we're literally taking our cow's skin and wearing it for ourselves, and that affects the cow, right? So that affects her. So since it affects her, it's not a personal choice because it's impacting someone else and negatively, right? So it ceases to be personal again because it's having a harmful impact on a third party. So that is the first thing that I'd like to talk about, personal choice. And also, if we were harmed by any aggressor or any accused person, right? Exactly. We wouldn't say that is an individual's personal choice to harm us because we're involved in it. Similarly, animals are sentient, and therefore we understand that it's not a personal choice to be using them in any way or means. And the second thing is about, you asked whether vegan activism is important. I definitely believe that vegan activism is really important because everybody is vegan today because somebody did vegan activism. So for example, I turned vegan because a group of vegan activists came to my college festival and spoke about veganism, spoke about animal rights, right? I did activism and was able to influence a lot of people in my social circle as well. And then they went vegan and spoke about veganism, and they changed the way that other people saw animals as well. So I think that everybody who's vegan today is vegan because some vegan did activism.
Right.
And this is not just in terms of street activism or college lectures. So many people turned vegan just by seeing a video on social media. Or, just by reading a status on social media. So one thing that I'd like to say is, sometimes when somebody goes vegan, they get intimidated and they think that they have to follow a certain brand of activism. But what I think is important is you don't have to follow a particular brand of activism. The advice that I would give is to simply make sure you don't compromise on the message, which is that animals are not to be used at all.
They're not commodities.
Exactly, they're not commodities, and that even humane use is inherently wrong because it's still use.
So in in that way, you would say that, you being humane towards, taking the milk from a cattle which you have been raising, that also is not considered.
Yeah. It's not humane because we only see when we talk about persons, right? A person is an individual with a distinct identity, right? So we are supposed to treat persons with humanity, and we use things, right? We use commodities.
Correct.
But if we're using a cow for her milk, then what we're ultimately saying is that she's a commodity and can be used for her milk.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And again, the issue of her male calves being killed still doesn't get solved because they still won't produce milk, right? But ultimately, even if we were to not kill the male calf and treat her very nicely,
compassionate,
the fact remains that we would still be using her for her milk, which is not ours to take in the first place. So even humane use in that sense is not logical. Yeah, and wouldn't sit well with justice in general, because imagine we would never accept you using humans humanely, right? So it doesn't make sense. So just like that, sentient beings should not be used at all, whether humane or not. I mean, there can't be a concept of humane exploitation. So
I think you just rightly mentioned humane exploitation.
Exactly.
Wow.
And just the other point that the thought that I would like to complete on vegan activism. So different vegans have different brands of activism. How you choose to go out there and advocate, whether it be through college lectures, whether it be through street activism, whether it be through maybe writing a song on veganism or doing chalk activism, whatever, or doing even painting. There are many artists who come up with street plays
so
on veganism.
Expressions can be in any way.
Expressions can be in any way. You don't have to feel intimidated into following a particular brand of activism. The only thing that must be made sure of is that the message is not compromised. That ultimately, if we're able to tell people that veganism is a social justice movement which recognizes that animals are sentient beings and should therefore not be treated as commodities, whether humanely or not is irrelevant. If we're able to portray that and put that across,
and
then any brand
the job is done. Yes.
As long as we, we believe that these brands of activism will be effective in trying to change the minds of people.
So how challenging do you find this task to be done, and how important do you feel this task to be done?
So I think, as I've already mentioned, I think this task is extremely important because all of us are vegan today, are vegan because someone did vegan activism. And I do feel in terms of challenging, I think it's the way we put our message across. There are definitely times when it's frustrating and people don't want to listen to the fact that animals are sentient beings. But more often than not, I've actually had positive experiences. And I think, a lot of it also rests on how we put the message across.
Correct.
You don't have to compromise on the message at all. You don't have to be nice and say, no, it's okay for you to use animals or consume animals in any way.
There's no point in compromise.
You don't have to compromise the message, but you can still state whatever you are in a very logical sense. And that's what I do. Whenever I do go out and talk to people about veganism, I make sure that I portray it in a very logical manner. So for example, I would ask them a question like, do you think that putting animals through unnecessary suffering is wrong? And everybody says, yes, it is wrong. We shouldn't put them through unnecessary suffering. Then the next question I ask them, do you think it is necessary to eat animals for our health or survival, or can you live a healthy life on plant-based food? And everybody says, I think it's possible for us to live a healthy life on a plant-based diet.
So it's possible, but they don't want to.
Yes. So then, to the first question, the basic answer from that is that they don't think animals should be put through unnecessary suffering, and they don't think that we need to use animals in any way. Again, not just for food, but they don't think we need to use animals at all in any way for entertainment and experimentation also. So if these two are the answers, if these are the answers to these two questions, then it only logically follows that we don't need to use animals because we don't need to use them for our health or survival.
Correct.
So if we're using them, then we are putting them through unnecessary suffering in essence. So they themselves realize, they realize that, and they realize, I believe that most people do have a sense of justice, and if we were to actually take a male calf out in the open and try to kill him, people would not be okay with it, you know.
Right.
But that's what happens in the